Hey everybody, welcome to the Age of Quarantine. So sorry to keep you waiting. Had some technical issues. Looks like we are all good now. So thanks for joining us. Hey everybody, welcome to the Age of Quarantine. So sorry to keep you waiting. Had some technical issues. Looks like we are all good now. So thanks for joining us. And we are going to get Jesse Leach from Killswitch engaged on the screen shortly. Just gonna let him know that I'm on. Okay, this has been an interesting one. I was supposed to start 15 minutes ago. There he is. Let's get him on. All right. Just give him a second here, and he should be appearing on the screen. Jesse, what's going on, man?
How you doing, brother?
Good. I am so sorry about that, dude. That has never happened to me. I'm on episode 67. That's the first time that's ever happened to me.
There's a lot of people on the internet right now. It's happened to a lot of people. It's just Instagram is just shit at the moment.
I feel you, dude. Well, you look great. I'm so happy to see you. It's great to just see some familiar faces during this crazy time, man. So thanks for making time. I'm going to do my quick intro really quick since I didn't get to do it before. But if you're just joining us now, everybody, my name is Chris Enriquez. I am from Revolver magazine. Depending on when you're watching this, you're either watching this live on St. Vitus Bar Instagram or on the Revolver YouTube channel. I'm really excited to have my guest Jesse Leach from Killswitch engaged on the show tonight. And obviously we're dealing with some crazy times right now, but the whole point of getting this program going was to spread positivity, engage with each other, and we need positivity and engagement more than ever, and music is a great vehicle for all of us to connect and why we all know each other and do this sort of stuff. So, Jesse, thank you again. How have you been managing to get through this crazy time, my friend?
It's a mixed bag, honestly. There are good days and bad days, but I'm sure everyone can relate to that. I would say more than anything, my heart is just heavy for what's going on everywhere. But other than that, I'm doing okay, man. I'm just using my time to be creative. I'm using my time to be out in nature and to really reflect on things and sort of refocus a lot in my life. This is the longest I've stayed still in close to a decade. So
yeah,
it's been good for self-reflection. It's been good for writing. It's been good for creativity. But overall, my heart is just really heavy for the state of the not just what's going on in this country, but across the world. It just feels like there's a lot of instability, a lot of questions, a lot of unanswered questions, and a lot of very concerned people that want changes. So, yeah, man, just trying to keep that PMA every day, but also realistically allowing the sort of sadness and contemplation to happen as well. So,
absolutely. Yeah, it's, certainly not... how do I say this? When struggle comes and negativity, it definitely makes you contemplate and hopefully find ways to have your voice be heard and try to just get perspective. And, who knows what kind of solutions we'll come up with from here. But I'm glad that people are thinking and standing up for themselves, and hopefully we'll see some progress. Like I said, I do like to use this opportunity to engage and just spend time with our favorite artists. And St. Vitus has been a safe haven for many years for people, for outcasts, for misfits. And we thank people like you for making music and giving us ways to escape from the things that just suck. You know what I mean? To put it plainly, I want to get to know you a little bit more through your musical journey and your career and how you came to be who you are, Jesse. You're originally from Rhode Island, right?
Yeah, that's kind of where I spent my formative years, my high school, my teenage years, like when I really started to latch on to music and sort of figure out who I was. So yeah, but I moved around quite a bit as a kid. But Providence, Rhode Island during the 1990s was definitely my church, my college, everything that I am, my roots, my hardcore punk is definitely all linked to Providence, Rhode Island for sure.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that too, because I know you're. We have one thing we both have in common is, I guess, we both have a love for old school hardcore and punk rock, and you always make sure to let the people know. What were some of the early bands, and when you got into aggressive music, what were the bands, what were the venues, and all that?
Yeah, my favorite venue of all time to this day still is a venue called Club Babyhead that was on Richmond Street in Rhode Island that turned into a venue called Club Hell, and I believe there was a bar upstairs called Jerky's, and that whole area right there was like one of the ladies who worked the door was my manager of my band Corinne at the time. And I was just a teenager, and I was able to get into a lot of the shows, the punk shows, the goth shows, the electronic industrial stuff, the fetish night. So I got exposed to all kinds of music because of Club Babyhead and the staff that worked there. So that was my CBGBs. That changed my life. And I was the little guy, underage, that was able to get in with the X's on my hands and hang out and sneak some drinks and sneak some smoke and hang out with bands like, before I even really knew, like bands like Murphy's Law, bands like Sick of It All. I remember seeing the Meatmen there. I remember seeing, I saw an early show of Entombed, Obituary. You name it, from death metal to goth to punk. That was my That was Club Babyhead and the Living Room were probably the two spots overall that helped raise me for sure.
Yeah, the Living Room is a classic one for sure, and I think we're kind of close in age. That was a magical time, like you said, because when you had a hunger for underground music, there was everything. I mean, you could get into goth music, whether it was Susie and the Banshees, and then there was Bad Brains and all that stuff, and everything in between. And I love that about you. I love how you always sort of let it be known. You kind of wear your heart on your sleeve in terms of like your roots and all that stuff, and you stay current. So that's very cool. What was the kind of how did you find your voice and then decide that you wanted to participate? You mentioned Corinne, your first band. Maybe like talk a little bit about how you went from just going to shows as a kid to kind of getting the courage to step in and be part of it in that regard.
Yeah, so the local scene in Providence at the time was great. You had bands from the legendary grindcore band Drop Dead, who are still one of my favorite bands ever, still going strong, to artistic, strange bands like Violent Anal Death. You had a band called Gravity Engine from that area that was very sort of heavy alternative Melvins kind of stuff. A band called Kilgore Smudge, which is kind of like groove rock with kind of a southern drawl to it a little bit. So there's a really diverse bands, and I would go to all these shows, and it didn't really, like, the bands didn't really hit me as hard as the first time I remember seeing Earth Crisis for the first time, like that kind of, or that sort of vein of like straight edge hardcore that was just powerful, really fucking heavy on the chugs, and the conviction with which they sang struck me. It was like, I'd always liked heavy music when I was young, bands like Metallica, Anthrax, my brother got me into that stuff. But it wasn't until I saw the conviction in the face and the urgent sounding of the screaming, like bands like Minor Threat, I never got to see them. I remember first hearing that music and being like, this guy means every single word he's saying, and you can't help but not listen to it. You can't just sit there, and it's not background music. It's in-your-face music. So I think straight edge hardcore was kind of the first thing to really hit me between the eyes. But the first band that I would say that made me really want to be a vocalist was a band called Bloodlet.
I love Bloodlet. They were great. Victory
so
Records,
good, right?
Yeah.
So good. So they mixed, and I think this is what grabbed me, they mixed like dark poetry and even like weird biblical references and odd sound effects, and they were creepy, but they were heavy. They had a hardcore vibe, but they were sludgy. They were a touch deathy. They just had a mix of such an interesting style, and I wanted to be Scott from Bloodlet. So that's kind of where Corinne came in. it was a mixture of me worshiping Bloodlet, my guitar player worshiping Integrity, and my other guitar player worshiping black metal. So we kind of took all of our influences and mashed it into this weird, dark, hardcore band. And a lot of the lyrics are just, it's dark. So I kind of got my footing in just expressing myself through dark poetry before I realized that I wanted to speak on social issues and racism and, you know, domestic violence and all the things that I write about now. So I have to definitely give a huge nod out to like dark metallic hardcore. That was the first thing that made me go, I want to do that. That shit's crazy.
Yeah, those are some great ones. Bloodlet, Integrity, Earth Crisis, you know. Having been alive for all that, you kind of just like take it for granted. But now looking back, we did have a real golden age. And a lot of those bands don't get enough due. So I think it's great that you dropped some of that on anybody watching that wants to go back and
and you know what it is about that time too is diverse. You would go to a show and see 5 bands and none of them sounded the same. Yeah. That is rare. It's rare, especially these days. You know, a lot of bands are mimicking other bands. I used to love going to a show and seeing before it was even a word, an emo band open for a hardcore band, and then have a crust punk band on the bill. And then the top bill would be like a ska band like Mephistopheles, you know, a satanic ska
right.
band. They could all exist on the same bill, and everybody stayed and had fun and got along. Like, that was really a golden age of music growing up, for sure.
Absolutely. I saw some of those early Killswitch shows back in the day, in the sort of early 2000s, and maybe even the late 90s, but I think it was more like the early 2000s. Talk about how the band, I'm sure you've talked about this a million times, but I love kind of just taking a trip down memory lane, if that's cool with you. Talk a little bit about how the band came together, and I'm curious also, did you guys set out to be this like large band, or was that not really even part of any discussion back then?
No, we were a bunch of, pretty much hardcore kids playing metal in our bands, our respective bands. Mike had his band Overcast, which I loved. I used to follow along, and we'd play shows together, but I'd also go out of my way to go see them and like get in the crowd and get in the pit and sing along. I'm sure if you look on the internet, there are pictures of that band playing and me on top of a bunch of people pointing at Brian singing along. And Adam and Joel were in a band called Aftershock. And all of us were sort of mixing that metallic sound with hardcore roots. And it was just, being from that genre of music, you're a community, you're part of a community. The people that are in the audience are your friends. The people that are on the stage are your friends. It's not how it is now at all. Like, none of us signed autographs. None of us gave a shit about fame. You go and you did it because you loved it and you believed in what you were doing and you had a sense of community. And that's still very much about who we all are in Killswitch as a band. As quote unquote big as we've gotten, that's still very much a part of our roots, which is why we really appreciate our fans so much and don't take this shit for granted. And for me, it was about I realized when we all teamed up as sort of a super group of sorts for the Northeast, that I'd have a much bigger platform to stand on. And that's sort of when I realized that I needed to say something in my lyrics. Killswitch Engage was the first band where I really started to speak on my spirituality and my political leanings and just wanting to better the world. And it's also the time when I really started to worship at the altar of the Bad Brains, the Clash, 108, like these bands that had conviction, they had things to say. And Bob Marley was actually a huge role model for me too, as well. I was really getting into reggae. So that's kind of when I realized that I had to have a message and it was important. And it gave me more of a sense of purpose than just getting on stage and being like, I'm miserable. Like when I was a teenager, it was just about being miserable and being, a teenager.
Right.
And Killswitch hit at that time going into my 20s where if I'm going to continue doing this music shit, it's got to say something. There's got to be a message to it.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Bad Brains and The Clash, and just hardcore in general, I think what's interesting is it's what sets it apart from other genres. There is a message involved with that movement, and you definitely have been very open with your platform and using it in positive ways, which I think is great. The fans I know have been asking in the comments a lot of questions. So guys, I was off to a rough start there with the internet connection, but about 10, 15 minutes, if you guys want to drop questions in the question mark box on the bottom, we'll definitely get to those. And I appreciate all of you being patient with me. Yeah, man, it's really cool that you've been a good role model, in my opinion. I see a lot of younger kids that listen to your band, working at Revolver, talking to people, talking to bands. You know, it's funny to think that it doesn't seem like so long ago that you guys were like a new band, but you've been around for so long, and there's a new generation of kids that I think you've had a positive influence on. How do you feel, you know, having such a good platform? Do you feel like it's been kind of, how do I put it this way? I mean, like, do you feel like it's been challenging, or has it been welcoming since you've been back in the band, using the platform, speaking on spirituality and politics and all the personal things that you've tried to address out there?
Yeah, I think it's a two-way street. Actually, I should say it's twofold. Music has always been a catharsis for me. It's always been a way for me to release. It's always been my therapy. So it kind of comes naturally to me to write honestly and to be raw with it. But what's crazy is when you're under the spotlight and people are really paying attention, they're watching you grow, you know, and I've changed substantially since I rejoined in 2012. I've shifted my whole worldview. I've gone through some of the roughest times of my life in my personal relationship, with addiction, and you're under the spotlight, so people are constantly seeing the changes, and my lyrics reflect that, you know, sometimes painfully so. But I think the beauty of Killswitch and the way that I try to write with Killswitch is keeping it ambiguous enough where you're not getting, you know, versus like my band, The Weapon, for example, my punk band. You listen to that band, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a straightforward, in your face, fuck you, fuck the system. There's no real poetic way of like sort of painting a picture. Where with Killswitch is more of, I'll put a song out with a message, but it's got a couple different meanings, and I'm allowing you, the listener, to sort of gain your own idea of what I'm speaking about. And I think that helps being sort of more open and emotionally raw without being too specific, because it doesn't sort of punch people in the face with a message.
Right.
It gives them an opportunity to digest it and go, oh, I could apply this to this part of my life, or I could apply this to that part of my life. But the one overwhelming thing I think people do understand, and when you come see us live, is we're a band that definitely promotes love, positivity, having a good time, and it's definitely a good vibe. When you leave a Killswitch show, we hope that you leave smiling and fun and maybe drunk, you know, just having a good time. So I think it's a balance between the real heartfelt lyrics and the passion I put into it versus like just having a good time. And I think that's the beauty of Killswitch, you know, like there's definitely a mixed bag with that.
Right.
So it takes some of the pressure off too, you know, like when Adam is next to you making jokes about, you know, dicks and farts and ass, it takes the spotlight off me, and I can take a breather, and like, you know, so it's a nice balance. But I do think we still put enough conviction and message into the music where it balances out the goofiness and the fun, and that's kind of our gift, I believe. Some people hate it, some people love it, but it works. It's the Killswitch sound. It's who we are.
I mean, you could also argue that that's life. You know, we go through wide ranges of emotions. We laugh, we get angry, we get depressed, and that's a true statement for sure. As a fan and a spectator walking away out of your shows, that I think you kind of leave with a lot of different mixed emotions throughout. So it definitely translates that way. Let me ask you too. I know some people have asked in the comments. This was actually one of my questions I had. When you approach songs lyrically, particularly in Killswitch, does music come first, or do you have books of lyrics that you kind of go back to and pull from kind of inventory or archive?
Yeah, I write a lot of poetry on a regular basis. So I'm always writing. So I've always got stuff to draw from. But what I like to do with music in general is hear the music first. And I don't write any of the music in any of my bands because I don't have the dexterity or talent to write fast, aggressive music on guitar or drums or bass. But I enjoy hearing the music and seeing how it hits me, how it makes me feel. And I'll sort of free write or even start out with even just a word that will come to mind and I'll jot it down. But there's been a few instances. We have a song called Always that was from something I had written on as I was on a red-eye flight looking out at the clouds. That came from a poem, but on the whole, the music comes first. I write by what I'm hearing, the chords, the notes, how they inspire me, and it just kind of just happens naturally. And you know, once the idea is out, then I'll sit there and really go through it and sort of mouth the words and put it in my headphones. I'll go for a bike ride and listen to it. I'll put it in my car. I just beat myself over the head with music, and then eventually I just start bloodletting the lyrics. It just starts to come to me, and I know exactly what I want to write about. So it's a fairly natural process that I've sort of figured out over the years, but it doesn't always come easy, though. You know, sometimes it comes with sleepless nights, and really because I mean what I say, and I know it's important. So
Yeah.
I put a lot of pressure on myself, and that can really spiral me into some odd places. I think that's what makes it good. You know, it's real.
Well, I definitely want to give a shout out to some people so that they don't think I'm ignoring. But let's put a spotlight here on @6605DG. He said that Killswitch has helped him or her. I don't know if that's a him or a her or but that you've helped them with depression. So I wanted to shout out that person. And also, I was going to say regarding the weapon, like you said, lyrically you approach it differently. It's got to be a little refreshing to be able to have a vehicle for the punk rock side of your personality, where it's like, I just got something to say, man. I don't want to get too deep here. How did the weapon come to me?
A minute and 20 seconds, and not have to worry about. You know, the weapon has been such a blessing. It's been such a nice thing to do, and when this is all over, I can't wait to get out and play shows because we are definitely gonna fuck shit up.
Yeah, fuck yeah, man! I'll definitely be there because that's my shit, dude. How did the weapon come together? And you know, talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so Chris Draper, our guitar player, who used to be in a band called Aggressive Dogs, a Japanese hardcore band. He was also in a band called Thy Will Be Done, which was like sort of metalcore band. I don't even want to use that word. A metal band from the New England area. We've just kind of always been friends. And he decided to move down to Brooklyn from New Hampshire. And at the time I was living in New York City, so it worked out. And he would just send me ideas and we just chatted about it. And I was like, yeah, man, I wanted to do a hardcore or a punk band for a long time. And the talking went to demos, and the demos went into, like, you know, getting other people involved, like Josh, who is the production manager for Killswitch Engage, who is the bass player, and also a great punk songwriter and an OG hardcore punk guy, just like me. And our drummer, Andy Mass, who has a studio in Yonkers, who's also an old school punk rocker. And we all just clicked real quick, started writing songs, and it took a while because of our schedules, but yeah, the full length got done, and you know, we're still writing, we're still planning and plotting, and I found 3 like-minded dudes that are revolutionaries like me, and we're just able to write fun, fast, pissed off music, and it's refreshing and it's fun, and I'm super stoked that we.
I can't wait to see that live. I saw you when you had guested with the Bad Brains tribute night in the Lower East Side,
Yeah.
and it was cool to see you doing that style after having seen Killswitch so many times. It was perfect. You could tell.
Yeah, that's an honor, man. That's one of the highlights of my whole entire career, man.
Right.
You know, a Bad Brains song with HR looking at me, and John Joseph in the building, and people that I grew up sort of like looking up to, my heroes, you know, and now John Joseph being a friend of mine too, which is badass.
Yeah, yeah.
To me, that's like, you know, that's the shit I still get. And I don't get starstruck. I'm not one of those people. I don't give a shit. But HR, I was nervous as fuck around that dude.
Oh my God, totally. Well, it's tough because you don't really know what he's thinking because, you know, depending on when
at that time too, he was definitely out of it.
Right, right. We're talking about getting him on the show.
But I got blessed by him that night. He actually touched me on the forehead. And he said, "God bless you, my child." I got blessed with the guitar, and that was it. I was like, all right, I could quit. I could die. I'm good. I got blessed.
That's amazing. I got this right here, so I'm right there with you. But
hell yeah, brother.
I'm going to do a quick shout out. We had John Joseph on the show recently, and you mentioned 108. Rob Fish from 108 is going to be on the show next week, and this Friday we have Neurosis on. So dope shirt, Jesse. I'll take a couple questions from everybody because I feel like I feel like people are getting restless and they're getting upset with me in the comments.
The youth are getting restless.
Yeah, there you go. The youth are definitely getting restless. Okay, so let's do this. All right, so here's a question from, let's see if I could pronounce this, Bile3 Yowl. What were the main bands that inspired you? I mean, you talked a little bit about it, but if you want to kind of try to sum it up.
One band that I don't think gets enough credit that I think really should get credit. Actually, one man who's got various bands, but a man named Dan Swano, a Swedish guy who had a band called Edge of Sanity. And in the early days, they were the band that made me want to do the whole death metal growling, screaming, and singing style that, they even went on to influence Opeth, like that sort of gothic death metal sound. Those guys, in my mind, or that man, Dan Swano in particular, was sort of the forefather of that particular style of music. The first time I heard someone who could really sing and then really do a death metal growl and scream. And alongside that would be Angel Dust by Faith No More.
Oh, fuck yeah.
That album was the single most album that sort of made me look at vocals in a completely different way. Even though I sound nothing like either one of those dudes or have half the talent, they were definitely the catalyst to make me want to do what I do. But as far as just shit I listen to, I'm a huge fan of Operation Ivy. I love the early ska punk stuff. I love Minor Threat. Obviously the Bad Brains we talked about, The Clash. There's a band from England called the Interterrestrials I'm a massive fan of. And I actually even go into electronic music. I'd say one of my most listened to things on my computer or my phone is a duo called The Orb out of England.
Okay.
Now they're old guys, but at the time they were two young DJ guys that create like ambient sort of dub, house, trance, strange, layered, textured sounds that really brought you to a whole other world. So my influences really run the gamut, but I would say those are the key ones that really changed the way I feel about music and the way I see things.
There you go. Yeah, and we love that too because Jesse, we try to mix it up. We'll have a metal show and then a goth night right afterwards. So, and we see you a lot.
I would say that too before we finish because I don't know how many people will speak up about this, but St. Vitus to me is one of my favorite clubs in the world right now. And no matter where I go on tour, what happens, especially when I lived in Brooklyn, I'd be there at least once or twice a week. For a dance night, for a metal karaoke night, or just to see like bands that you wouldn't see in other clubs. Vitus has always booked cool bands like crust punk bands or grindcore bands or black metal bands, sludge bands that normally wouldn't make it to slightly bigger clubs, and you get a really intimate environment if it is a bigger band. St. Vitus, yeah, for sure. Like one of the clubs I'm going to be, as soon as this shit is over with, I'll be there within the first week if I'm home still. I love St. Vitus.
Thank you on behalf of St. Vitus, and I love that we see you so often in the neighborhood. Jesse, you always come out and support small bands, local bands, parties. Really good.
Oh, and motherfuckers need to know that The Weapon, we raised a bunch of money from the sales from our record, and we donated a shitload of money to St. Vitus.
Oh, shit. There you go. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're still in the questions here. Mark KCMO wants to know, what happened to Empire Shall Fall? Please ask him.
Yeah, Empire Shall Fall, a band I'm also very proud of, and lyrically was definitely very political and something I was proud of. When I rejoined Killswitch, it sort of went by the wayside because when I rejoined Killswitch, it was just a whirlwind of recording and touring and nonstop. I didn't have the energy to keep up with it. And during that time, members, carried on with their lives, got real jobs, had kids, had families. So we never officially broke up, but everybody just kind of went their own way. And it's just really hard with all of our schedules, especially mine with all the projects I'm doing, to even focus on that. Because everybody, like I said, you get people with kids and real jobs. It's not like you can just, meet me on a Wednesday when I'm free to work on stuff. They only have the weekends, and usually weekends are busy for me, or I'm on tour constantly. So that's a project that unfortunately just kind of fizzled out and not officially broken up, but I don't foresee anything happening with that project in the near future at all. So
Hey, at least we have the latest Killswitch and the weapon. I'm gonna do maybe one or two more questions before I get back to mine, because I felt like everyone thought I was ignoring them. So I'm gonna try to be a man of the people right now. Okay, so we're gonna go with okay, here we go. This is a good one. Zip DeLong. Thanks for submitting a question. What Killswitch album or song means the most to you, and why?
Oh God, those types of questions. It's so hard for me to narrow that down, man. They all have different meanings. Maybe I should speak on the one that really isn't a popular one that we never play live and is sort of like fell to the wayside. Let me pick one that's random. I would say The Great Deceit, which is off of the last record. And I wrote that in the wake of the riots and protests that happened in New York around Occupy Wall Street, and also the protests around Eric Gardner. And to me, that was my way of just speaking out against the system and our corrupt government and the corrupt banking system. And the corrupt abuse of power by the police force. And that was many, many years ago. I wrote that song. If you read the lyrics, if you listen to it, towards the end, I say, how can we breathe? The silence is killing me. How can we breathe? No justice, no peace. And that song rings true to this very fucking day. And I'm proud of that song. And I'll continue to write songs like that and observe what I see going on in the world. But yeah, that's a song that I feel just kind of fell by the wayside. And you know, it's still relevant today, which is great, you know, and also very sad.
Right.
It's a mixed bag when you write lyrics like that and you're paying attention to what's going on in the world. I'm proud of it, but I'm also sad that it is still very relevant. Yeah,
seriously, it's so wild how, like, not only are there so many songs, and you know, the other day, a lot of people I know were posting songs from the past that related to what's going on today, and it's just crazy how relevant it is. It's like, you know, it's almost like they were written a month ago or 2 months ago. One of my favorite records that came out recently is Run the Jewels and RTJ4, right? Yeah, fuck yeah. I listened to it so much this weekend. Those songs were written and recorded before all this went down, and it's fucking crazy.
Right? It could have been written this week.
Right. So wild, man.
When that record dropped, I came home and I had just gotten a new audio component for my home studio speakers, and I put that thing all the way up, and I was running around my house just like, what?
Yeah.
When the part where Zach from Zach De La Rocha said, "Look at all these slave masters posted on your dollar," I was like, I wanted to smash the windows in my house. I love that song. It's so good.
It's the only thing to smile about all week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for real.
Such a good album, dude. And I'm a huge fan of those guys. And Killer Mike, to me, is like the perfect human to speak out on issues, because he's fair, he's balanced, he's really intelligent, and you can tell he's got a heart of gold. And you know, the duo, LP and Killer Mike, two great rappers on their own together, man. And it's not even just hip hop. They appeal to a much larger audience because they're heavy. There's a vibe to it. And you see them live, the show is killer. I'm a huge Run the Jewels fan. I love those dudes.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So get back to you. We were talking a little bit earlier before I got sidetracked with the questions about the early days. Obviously, you've had some seriously huge moments throughout your career. I like to call them holy shit moments. I mean, I don't even know where you would begin, but Anthrax opening up for you guys and you guys being direct support to Maiden. What would be like your favorite holy shit moment where you just took a look at yourself and where you were at and just said, wow, I can't believe that this is happening right now?
There's a couple of them. There's more than a couple. But,
feel free to indulge us with a few.
Yeah, I'd say off the top of my head, landing in African soil and playing a festival in front of a couple thousand people in South Africa was a huge moment. And then being able to go on safari and like see a little bit of Africa and to know that there are metal fans there, that was crazy. I would say the same thing for Russia, going to Russia for the first time, playing in China at a festival in front of tons of people, and seeing people who are across on the other side of the globe that know the words, that are singing the words and are passionate about it and going crazy for your music. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff I'll never forget. And one recently happened. We were able to go to the Grammy Awards again, which, if we're all honest, the Grammy Awards are a bunch of, pat yourself in the back bullshit political awards. But to be nominated is interesting because you get to go and see how that shit works. And again, that's not super important. But what it did do was allow me to be in the same room as Iggy Pop at one point. And I remember standing there with my drink in my hand in the lobby of the Grammy Awards, getting ready to grab my seat, and Iggy Pop walks by. And my girlfriend's looking at me like I had seen a ghost because my face was like, oh. And she's like, what? I'm like, Iggy Pop. And I didn't even approach. I didn't fucking talk to him. I watched him walk past me like the weird little strange angelic dude that he is. He's just a legend of punk and music and culture. So I was definitely starstruck getting to
I can only imagine.
Dumb, but that's how much of a fan I am of music, that people who changed the world and changed my life still have that effect on me. And Iggy Pop to me will always be a god among men when it comes to attitude, style, and finesse.
Yeah. I mean, he was a prototype before punk rock.
There was punk, dude. Him and the MC5 and the Stooges are two bands that kicked it off. They are punk before punk, and I'm a big fan of those bands.
There was a great that MC50 tour, which I saw with Brendan Canty from Fugazi on drums, and Kim Thale on guitar, and God, it was. I mean, it's not the same, but it was really cool for someone like us. I think I'm just a year or two younger than you. I didn't get to see that, so I'm just like, let me go check out. I got to see Ramones. That was the closest thing I got to like original punk.
I got one more. We played
please.
In Europe, and Motorhead was the headliner, and I got to stand about 10 to 15 feet away from Lemmy. It was the last year or so that he was still alive, and then I had earplugs in, and I had my hands over my ears, and for 3 days after that show, I still had tinnitus. It was the loudest, most incredible thing. But the cool thing about it is, you see bands that go nuts. You see bands that like put their all into it, and they just physically are drained when they're done. Lemmy stood there, head up, microphone here, just being a fucking badass. And it was one of the coolest. I kept getting chills. One of the coolest things. Like, he was one of the last real rock stars. He had a presence to him. He had an aura to him. And to be able to stand that close to the man and watch him do what he did, man, like that's something I'll never forget as long as I live.
Oh yeah, it's got to be so inspiring.
To this day, is still one of the coolest motherfuckers that ever walked the planet.
Yeah, man. Hell yeah. That's I feel like every time someone talks about Lemmy, it's one of those inspiring things where it's like, this dude, I mean, people talk about the Stones and all that, but I mean, Lemmy was fucking just a beast, and he killed it every time. Even when he was at the end of his life, there were some videos of him performing, and he just fucking gave it his all. That's cool. You got to have that moment.
Well, that, and like, he didn't give a fuck. He didn't give a shit.
Right.
He didn't care what you thought about him, and you could tell. And that is like, when I see someone like that, that's badass. He was a badass. He was a real fucking guy.
I'm going to give you a compliment that I'm sure you'll see where I'm going here. But something you have in common with him that I think is cool is that he actually gave a lot of underground bands a chance who would open up for him, like Cro-Mags and Venom and Megadeth. And you've also been somebody that has had people open up for you from the underground. And let's talk a little bit about that. I see you wearing T-shirts of smaller bands that are kind of coming up, whether it's like Youth Code or there's so many. But what goes into picking and choosing the bands that you want to support, take out with you? How do you guys kind of decide on that stuff?
Yeah, it's a mixed bag. It's you want to get bands that draw people's attention, But I also think, especially if you're looking at an opener, a bigger band should definitely look into the younger bands, the baby bands, as we call them, because they bring an energy and a passion to the live show, into the tour, that you can't get with a band that's been around forever, for the most part. You know, bands get a little more set in their ways and a little more into their routines, which I really strive not to do myself still. But case in point, we took out Code Orange back when Code Orange was, you know, a baby band. And I remember watching them every night and being like, you see this energy right here. And I remember Scott from Anthrax, me and Scott from Anthrax standing side stage, and we're both just like, this is what we're talking about. Like, this is why you bring out younger bands, because they set the bar high, and every band that came after it had to set the bar higher. So it forced the bands who were sort of set in their ways to like bring their A game. And I love that about young bands, regardless of how well seasoned they are, how you know, they may be a slightly imperfect, but the drive and the passion and the fire that a younger band has, it's just inspirational. And it reminds me of being that age and just wanting nothing more than to get in front of people and have my voice heard. And yeah, not just with bands we take on tour, but you're right, bands, t-shirts I wear or stuff I'll repost. You're just keeping it alive, keeping music alive and keeping it fresh. There's a lot of good bands out there right now, and it's oversaturated in the internet. So if the least I can do is sort of shine a little bit of a spotlight from my platform for one of those younger bands, I'll do it, man. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. Who are some of the bands that you feel took you under their wing and kind of made you feel like you were getting a new platform when you were kind of coming up?
I would say one of the bands that means the most to me for that reason. Nice. After I fell flat on my face with Killswitch and quit and sort of spiraled into a really dark depression, you know, I was in a band called Seamless for a good 4 or 5 years, and In Flames took us out on tour, and we were able to open for In Flames, and they treated us like absolute gold. They were the nicest dudes. They were fans. Every single night they were like, would offer us booze. They'd offer us food off their rider. So I will always have love and respect for the In Flames guys. And their early records definitely helped shape Killswitch, were a big influence to Killswitch as well. So past and present members of In Flames and their music, I absolutely love those dudes, and I have a lot of respect for In Flames.
Awesome. That's cool, man. I always love hearing that stuff. I'm in Bed-Stuy right now, and there's motorcycle gangs outside.
I can hear, yeah.
Going crazy, so I apologize for that.
No, I love it. It's fine.
Yeah,
All I got out of my window is coyotes and bugs and birds, man. I'm up in the so I'm minding a little city noise because I ain't living there anymore.
Yeah. So you bounced, I guess. I used to see you everywhere. I had no idea that you bounced, but I'm glad that you're somewhere around nature, and hopefully it's peaceful and a good place to be. Awesome. Fuck yeah. Well, I do hope we see you back here at some point soon. So let's talk about Atonement. You know, obviously the current state of everything kind of prevented you and everybody from going on tour and doing stuff. But what can we expect? Hopefully, post-pandemic, are you guys doing anything creatively or anything you could talk about? Whether it's like quarantine video jams or stuff.
Yeah, at the moment with Killswitch, it's like, you know, we're just biding our time until we can tour again. And because of that, it's actually made room for Times of Grace to sort of get the wheels rolling after almost a decade. So we're able to wrap up the Times of Grace record, and we've got a couple of quarantine jams that we are finished with that will start to drop very soon. In fact, maybe as early as tomorrow we'll get one, maybe an old song reworked, maybe a new song, maybe a cover. So yeah, it's made way for this behemoth of an album that I am infinitely proud of, and I think it's probably single-handedly mine and Adam's best work to date. So yeah, if nothing else, Killswitch will hit the ground running as soon as the touring gates open, and we'll be on the road supporting that album. But in the meantime, since we're all still sitting still, it gives Times of Grace that unique opportunity to roll out our record and have people check that out. So I'm so stoked on that one.
It's amazing. I feel like it was just yesterday that you had rejoined the band, and I had interviewed you around that time just to realize how many records have come out since then, and that you're already working on a new one. It's amazing. You guys are definitely workaholics, and I can only imagine how strange it is to stand still right now.
Yeah, it is strange, but it's necessary. You know, it's made me reflect on a lot of things. So it's a blessing in disguise, regardless of the crazy state of the world. You know, you have to sort of, as we were saying when we started, find the positive in everything. And it's helped me be creative and have a different point of view with music. So yeah. Yeah.
Well, Jesse, what do you think you would be doing right now if your full-time job wasn't Killswitch engaged?
I think that I would either be, well, a couple of things, depending on, yeah, it's hard to say. I would either be in the restaurant industry at some way, shape, or form, whether co-owning one or being in the kitchen or a bartender. Those are things that I find myself very comfortable in, that type of atmosphere. Or to be honest with you, probably a park ranger somewhere in the middle of nowhere, protecting the environment and the animals and making sure that people didn't destroy our earth. I think those are the two passions I have: eating, drinking, and taking care of the planet. So those are the three options I could see myself doing for sure right now.
I love that, man. It speaks to your character that whether you're involved as an artist or not as an artist, that you really care about the bigger things around you, and that you can't really say that about all people, but also there's a lot of musicians that are just not as conscious or whatever. So I think
I can't help it, man. I was just raised that way. It's part of my spirit. I can't escape it. I can't.
Yeah.
If I wanted to be an asshole, I can't do it.
Well, we are kind of getting at the home stretch, and there's a couple of questions that I ask all my guests at the towards the end, and maybe I'll take a few more from the fans in a second. But okay, so every night that I do this show, I always ask people, it's kind of the desert island question, and I think you'll have fun with this since you love talking about your influences. But let's just say you're stuck in the pandemic, we can't get out of here, and we're stuck longer than we want to, and you have 5 records, only 5 records that you get to keep. What records are those, and why?
I'm going to go for the obvious off the top of my head. Bad Brains is self-titled, because I cannot ever get rid of that record or get sick of it. It's just, from start to finish, classic. Puts me in a good mood. Let's see. I'm going to go with Brian Eno, Music for Airports.
Oh, it's a classic right there.
Yeah, 4-song EP that just calms me and soothes my soul. Let's go with Amon Amarth, Odin on Our Side, because Viking metal is amazing, and listening to it. And when I'm lighting a fire in my backyard, I often listen to Amon Amarth. I love that band.
Hell yeah.
On that same tip, Opeth, Blackwater Park, I think is a masterpiece.
I love that record, yeah.
And then to keep it on a reggae edge, probably Equal Rights by Peter Tosh. I love that record.
Fuck yeah, man. Fuck yeah.
It's my mixed bag of albums, for sure. I mean, and also anything early Bob Marley and the Wailers, that shit is fucking gold too. So I cheated 6-ish.
Sick. There you go. So if you're watching and you want to treat yourself to some shit to check out while you're stuck at home, Jesse's got some good recommendations there. Since we're a New York venue, I always like to do this too with certain people that I know can answer it properly. But top 5 NYHC record.
Agnostic Front, Sick of It All, Sub-Zero, Murphy's Law, of course, and what can I do that's slightly different? Crumbsuckers. Are they New York?
Crumbsuckers are where I'm from. They're from Long Island.
Long Island, word. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Boom.
There you go. Awesome. Hey, I'll take a couple questions and then we'll do some final words. But there's so many in here that I don't want to totally ignore everybody. Okay, let's see. Man, you guys are asking so many questions. They just want to know about times of grace. Okay, let's just stick there. I have 25 questions about times of grace. What can you tell us? What are you allowed to tell us about times of grace?
So Times of Grace, the album is done. We have 2 quarantine versions of songs. One is an old school one reworked. The other one is a new cover that you won't see on this next record, because it's not just one record, it's going to be a record and another release. I will say that. And we hope to have it out this year. That's as much as I can really say about it. As far as the music, it's definitely different from the last record. We decided to really sort of set ourselves apart from the Killswitch sound. I think the last record had a lot of Killswitch in it. And we made a conscious departure to write more artistically indulgent songs, a little more rock orientated, some post metal, I guess, if you will, effects driven guitars, very big atmospheric sounding stuff, and then acoustic-y, sort of more blues, rock driven stuff as well. So there's less of the quote unquote metal core-ish, whatever that genre you want to call, and more of a genuine heavy metal, rock and roll, experimental record. And I'm super stoked on it. I'm very proud of it. And I will say this too, Adam takes center stage a lot more in this record. It's very much a 50-50 album when it comes to vocals. So you're going to hear a lot more of Adam's voice, and he has come such a long way with his voice and his lyrics. I'm so proud of him. Again, I think it's the best work that we have done as musicians in this particular genre ever, I would say.
Fuck yeah, man. I mean, everybody just keeps commenting and asking questions about it. So thank you for telling us. And again, just knowing what I've observed of you in terms of your vast musical world, it's cool to hear that you're infusing that into Killswitch. So it sounds like you made the record that you always wanted to make, and I can't wait to hear it.
Pretty much, yeah. I'm stoked on it, man.
Awesome, man. Well, I guess we want to let you go and not take up too much of your time. But do you have any final words or shout outs or anything you want to mention before we say goodbye?
Yeah, I guess I got to word this carefully, but take care of each other. You know, I think we have to lead with love, but we also have to lead with compassion and understanding for what's going on in this world right now. We have to take time to listen to each other, to try to understand each other, and try to not bicker immediately and do name calling and stoop to that level. You know, we will get a lot further in this world as humans if we just take time to hear each other out and try to come to a common ground to stand on and stand up for what is right. Fuck a political stance, left, right, conservative, liberal, all that stuff is legitimately a distraction, a white noise distraction to pull you away and divide you as a people. It's very important for us to find a common ground and realize the power we have as people to create change. That change is going to have some pain attached to it and growing pains, but at the end of the day, it is compassion and love and understanding that is going to win the day, and do what is right, what you feel is right in your heart. I think that's super fucking important right now. That, and take care of yourself. Make sure that you take time out, stay off the internet, take care of your head, get your head straight, calm yourself down, approach situations with wisdom and respect, and you'll get a lot further in life and you have a lot less stress.
Hey, man, I couldn't have said it better. Thank you so much. And looks like we got a shout out from Dave Castillo, the owner of St. Vitus, who is loving the Weapon record. He just wanted to let you know that. Fuck yeah, man.
Pay your bills too, bro. Dude, Dave's a great guy. Anytime I'm invited, he comes up, gives me a shot, pats me on the back. We have good conversation. He's a good dude. And that big shout out back to him, and shout out to everybody at Vitus, the bartenders, the staff, everybody that works there. Everyone's always been mad cool to me, and Vitus is like a second home, and I love going there, and I can't wait to go back.
You're the best, Jesse, and I hope that more people can be like you, because the world will be a better place. So sending you a lot of PMA, my friend, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night, everybody. Take care. Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
Take care, brother. Good to see you.